Namaskar, Sat Shri Akal, Adab. Welcome to the channel. My name is Kubeir. I'm a CICC licensed immigration consultant, and I do this because I love it. I love the whole subject of Canadian immigration. I love the updates, the changes that they keep bringing every single day. There's something to talk about. There's something to look at and feel sometimes excited, sometimes nervous, sometimes not so very happy, sometimes quite agitated as well. But that's what the whole package brings for you. You obviously need to get into it in order to like it. And obviously, as I said, you don't always have to like it, but that's what it's all about. So I'm here to bring you a weekly roundup. Haven't done it very regularly in the last month or so for different reasons, but now that we are here, hopefully, and the autumn is started and the winter is coming, hopefully we should get back to our routine, regular weekly roundups each Saturday morning at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Today, just like a normal schedule that we do, we have some PNP draws. We will talk about certain other things. Amongst them, the most important one is the numbers, and the numbers are here. I mean, not that I want to toot about it, but I've been talking about these numbers, right? And the number of temporary residents and the number of permanent resident quotas, there is a huge imbalance. And what's going to happen? What does the government plan for it? What do we plan for it? How do we go about it? What do we look at? So we're going to talk about that after we finish this very short presentation. And so let's get going. All right. So starting with the quote of the week: positive thinking will let you do everything better than negative thinking will. Zig Ziglar. Great quote. Obviously, I mean, if you are going to be thinking, if you may as well be positive about it, because if you're going to be thinking negative, your mind only pushes you towards the negativity aspect of it. You will also see, I'm not sure how many of you follow the art of manifestation or believe in the art of manifestation. You will also understand that if you were to follow those principles in life, and that's why they say, right, if you think positive, positive will happen. If you think negative, negative will happen. Therefore, if you have to think anyway, so may as well be positive about it. So at least something good will come out of it. And then with me, I'm forever hopeful anyways, right? So this is the Canadian Immigration Weekly Roundup. Stay up to date on Canadian immigration news and trends on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, of course. Today's topics of discussion, as usual, we will talk about the PNP updates. We'll talk about Express Entry in a bit, other news as well. Starting with the PNP draws, British Columbia on the 4th of October conducted their weekly draw inviting candidates for the BC PNP. The province invited 110 candidates in the general draw. This means there was no specific occupation that were targeted. The minimum score to receive an invitation varied depending on the candidate's program stream. So it varied from 111 in the skilled worker stream to international graduate needing a score of 113. And then for others, you needed a score of 91. Now, mind you, for most, rather all, except for one specific stream, you need a job offer for all the immigration streams for BC PNP. So that is something which you need to keep in mind. The one that you don't need a job offer, that is the stream where you have completed a master's or a PhD degree in British Columbia in a specific field. So if you've done that, then you will be able to apply under the postgraduate international student stream for British Columbia. You don't need a job offer. For everything else, you definitely need a job offer. And of course, they have a separate portal. So you'll have to create your expression of interest in that portal if you have a job offer, if you're eligible as per their criteria. And then based on that, you get invited. Alberta, a favorite province, because they tend to be a jackpot for a lot of people who otherwise do not have any options with any other province. They invited only 33 candidates under the AAIP, Alberta Advantage Immigration Program. The candidate was selected from the priority sector. The problem is they do now announce the industry occupations, but they don't really give you the NOC code, so you don't really know who are being invited. Minimum CRS score of 313 was required in order to receive the nomination. And agriculture occupation was this time's priority occupation. Now, we went back there, sorry. This draw, obviously follows the first Express Entry category-based draw that happened for agriculture in Express Entry. So it is also reflected with all the other provinces, that they have been picking up agriculture, they've been picking up transport, they've been picking up trades, they've been picking up healthcare, And that has been the storyline for most of the PNP selections as well. Prince Edward Islands invited 20 candidates to their labor and express entry category for the PEI PNP. All candidates were working in the healthcare and food processing sectors. They have been holding draws since the 20th of July. And until at that point, all draws were general and did not target any specific occupation. The province has invited 505 candidates since July, mainly targeting candidates in, as you can see again, healthcare, food processing, manufacturing, construction, and it has also conducted draws for some undefined critical workers. So you see, all the provinces are slowly moving to the similar categories that IRCC has identified. We have some other news. Minimum wages have increased for hourly workers in Canada across different provinces. In Ontario, it went up by $1.05. Manitoba, it went up $1.15. Saskatchewan from 13 to 14, $1. Nova Scotia, it went up from $14.50 to $15, which is 50 cents. Newfoundland and Labrador, 50 cents. Prince Edward Islands, 50 cents. So this is effective October this year. So the salary increases, or the minimum wage increase is now already in effect. Pretty cool, eh? I mean, when we say pretty cool, I do not know how much of an impact it makes, because it definitely is not keeping up with the inflation that's ongoing in the market. And people who are at the receiving end of the minimum wages, they will tell you that though there is an increase, it's not increased enough. Upfront medicals. Now, this is a good one. And it has also confused a lot of people. So let's break this one down. So what happened was, upfront medicals were required. You know that you know this is happening, right? During COVID, what IRCC did is that they have also now given an exemption to people who are inside Canada applying for temporary residence or applying for permanent residence. From inside Canada, they are exempt from providing new medicals if they have already completed their medicals within the last 5 years and they have the medical report or the UMI number or the AMI number. And that exemption is still in effect. So even if you are now in Canada, if you're applying for your temporary residence or permanent residence, you already completed your medicals within the last 5 years, you don't really need to do new medicals as long as you have the old one. Now, what they've done is, for everybody else, you had to complete upfront medicals. Now, if you are not going to complete your upfront medicals, then your application can get rejected under the R10 stage for not completing upfront medicals. So what this was doing is that a lot of people were obviously going to all the different medical centers across the world trying to get their medicals done. In a lot of cases, there is a bit of a communication gap. Now, what happened is, earlier during COVID, IRCC had said, don't do upfront medicals. We will give you a request letter, then you go and get the medicals done. Some of these medical centers are still with the same process. So they are expecting you to have a request letter from IRCC to complete your medicals, so that your medicals will then be linked directly to your application. In that request letter, there is an IME number or a UMI number or your UCI number, whatever you want to sort of. These are 3 different numbers. All of them refer to you as an individual profile. And most of the times, the medical centers will ask you for it. You don't have it, and you will give them your UCI number that you see in your express entry profile, which starts from CAN. Now, CAN number is not a UCI number. CAN number is a candidate number. At this point of time, you haven't submitted your PR application. You are just a candidate in the express entry pool. So therefore, that is not your UCI number. But a lot of people confuse it. They give a CAN number. And that creates further administrative issues. More than that, in some countries, I think Pakistan was one of them. I think in some cities in India, there was an issue. And in some other countries as well, getting a medical appointment to complete your medicals was becoming a nightmare. It was becoming quite difficult to get one easily. Also because a lot of people wanted to do upfront. There are other applications where they are stuck in the backlog and they want to do another medicals just because they know that their medicals have expired. So a lot of people try and do these upfront medicals, and that was creating a further queue ups on the medical center sides. And hence, finally, IRCC has come back and said, please, guys, if you're submitting an application in express entry, please do not complete your medicals upfront. For PNP, non-express entry applications, this was always the condition, right? You don't have to complete your medicals upfront. For spousal sponsorship applications, this was always a condition. You don't have to do your medicals upfront. Only express entry needed you to complete your medicals upfront, simply because they were able to complete the application processing in 6 months or less. But now they have come back and said, please hold your horses, don't do your medicals upfront. We will ask you for it. Now, there are a couple of benefits out of this. We all know that the medicals have a 12-month validity, right? So, and the 12-month validity is from the date the medical center uploads your test reports to IRCC, from that date onwards, not the day you complete your medicals. Actually, it's just a few days difference, so it doesn't really matter. But on an average, you get the gist of what I'm saying. So it gives you 12-month validity. And when IRCC issues your visa, your COPR, your PR visa, if you're outside Canada, the validity of that visa is also linked either to your passport validity, if it is expiring sooner, or to your medicals, whichever is later, whichever is sooner rather. So if your medicals are expiring, let's say you complete your medicals, after 2 months you get your approval. Now your PR visa will have a validity for 10 more months, right? Which gives you enough time to pack your bags, to settle your things, to settle all your obligations, and then come to Canada. So overall, I don't see it as a bad idea. I think it's pretty good, except for the fact that a lot of people are thinking that now this will add to the process time. Well, yeah, a bit, but I don't think it's going to make too much of a difference. So I think overall, it's not a bad idea. At least it takes away one headache from you in your attempt to submit your PR application. You don't have to get the medicals done upfront. All you need to do is get your police clearances, education documents sorted out, which you should have already, your work experience documents, your proof of funds, and you should be ready to go. In addition to this, this is effective 1st of October. So if you are submitting an application effective 1st of October, you don't need medicals. Now, I know a lot of people may have already done the medicals. They were now waiting to submit the application. Please go ahead and submit those medicals. It's not a problem at this point of time. Anybody henceforth going forward, if you're looking to do this, please hold your medicals. Do not complete them, and you will be fine. Yeah, that's basically the update as for the medicals was concerned. Now let's discuss what. Oh, for some reason it did not download. Of course, numbers game, TR versus PR. Now this is obviously the main topic for today's, or the main point on the agenda for today's discussion, the TR versus PR game. Now I call it a game because that's what it's looking like, right? Sometimes I feel that sometimes IRCC doesn't see the human element behind each number, the application number. It's just numbers for them. The quotas are just numbers for them. The statistics is, of course, just numbers for them. There are so many human elements behind it, the human emotion. So many people have done so many different things in order to come to a point of, where they want to now get permanent residence of Canada, get the citizenship of Canada, for whatever the reason might be. I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritties. I'm not going to talk about the refugees or the asylum seekers or the people who are seeking protection, but by and large, international students, workers, visitors, everybody else who wants to come to Canada. Notwithstanding the current debacle that's ongoing between India and Canada, let's put that aside. In my opinion, that is politics. Certain things could have been done in different manner. Well, I'm sure they will get to it. We have seen a lot of talks online from certain media outlets on certain releases there, where it says that Canada is not safe, or the parents of international students are feeling quite worried about their children coming to Canada because they feel Canada is not safe. Actually, there is absolutely nothing happening in Canada which you would call unsafe for the international students. Life just goes on. Everybody's on with their regular, routine tasks. People who have to go to work will go to work. People who have to go to study will go to study. People who are enjoying the weather, they will continue to do that. Actually, it's season of fall, and it's actually quite beautiful out there. So this is what the media does, right? If they do not sensationalize, if they do not use those sensationalizing headlines, you wouldn't read those. So therefore, they do all of this. Same thing happens with Twitter, right? So, for example, if I share a post on Twitter and I quote some lines from the same article, suddenly people come after me as if thinking it's my views, my opinion. It's not. I am not anti this religion or anti this community or anti this. As far as I'm concerned, I'm only pro immigration, pro this particular field that absolutely interests me. Why? Because I'm an immigration consultant. I make money out of it as well. I love it, and I love the whole field. Love the whole subject. So that's what I enjoyed being and doing. But otherwise, don't be a headline reader. Read the whole context if you want to, or just stay away from the media and the whole hype that is being created. But coming back to the main point about the numbers, now there is also a lot of hype that is being created with the numbers. And then there are some real numbers as well. So what has happened is the latest Stats Canada report has been issued. This is as of, let's see if I have it here. I have it here. Yes. So this is the Stats Canada report, which is as of July 1, 2023. It's the demographic estimates. Obviously, it's estimates because there is absolutely no way to give you the exact number of people in a certain place in a certain demographic location, right? It's not possible because people keep moving all the time. However, this is the estimate, right? And it's obviously is a record high population growth since 1957. Most of you are already familiar or aware that Canada reached the landmark number of 40 million, as in the population of 40 million on 16th of June. This is something which you already understand now. As of July, we have more than 40 million, approximately 40 million and 100,000. We are already in October. So from July, August, September, we are already like three months later. And I'll tell you what is the difference 3 months later on how it can happen. As I scroll down, and obviously the link for this particular report is in the description box. You will find it there, so you don't have to worry as to where to find this report. But why is this report so important? Because in this report, where did it go? It talks about new estimates of non-permanent residents. And that is where it becomes very, very important. Again, from the report, international migration accounted for nearly all growth from July 1 to July 1, 2022 to July 1, 2023, because of high number of immigrants, which was the permanent residents who are coming to Canada, and increase in the number of non-permanent residents. Okay. This is where it becomes very, very interesting. Now, non-permanent residents come to Canada for all different reasons. And this is what is making it so interesting. The number of hold on, what happened here? Let's get back. Yeah, we're still here. The number of non-permanent residents holding a work permit was estimated to have reached 1.5 million. It's 1.426, but this is on 1st of July. I'm going to sort of think and assume that the rest of the numbers have added up already in the next 3 months. So we are looking at about 1.5 million, up from 868 a year prior, 64% increase. So just the work permit holders in Canada have increased by 64%. Huge number. 1.5 million now, right? Now, this change, in my opinion, could be for a variety of reasons. You've had work permit extensions. You know that, right? Postgraduate work permit extensions, plus obviously international students completing their education and then obviously applying for work permits. And of course, LMIA exempt and all of that. But let's look at the bigger, better number. Again, as of July 1, 2023, an estimated 2.1 million people are non-permanent residents who are living in Canada. This is a 46% increase from the same date the year prior, which was 1.5 million. So last year, July 2022, there were 1.5 million temporary residents. And now this year, 2023, it's almost 2.2. Again, consider the fact that there has been 3 months since this last data was released. So let's go with the round number, so it's easier to talk about. 2.2 million. Out of this 2.2 million, as I just showed you here, where did we go? 1.5 million is workers, right? People who are holding work permits. And out of these 2.2, if you remove the number of work permit holders, so that is roughly 700,000, right? Let's do a very, very fair back of the napkin kind of a math. I don't agree with this number. Why don't I agree with this number? Why? Because here you go. This is another article from CBC, and it talks about how many international students who have come to Canada in 2023, or how many international students are there in 2023? The rough estimates are at about 900,000. Okay, close to a million, 900,000. So if this report states, if this report says 2.2 million people, and out of that 1.5 million is workers, which is leaving only 700,000 away, then again keep in mind this is as of 1st of July. After July, you have had August and September, two very, very crucial months, because September is the largest intake for international students. Okay, majority of the international students who come to Canada start their intake. The big intake starts in September. That's when they're starting their bachelor's degree, they're starting their master's degree. Most of the international programs will probably start in September. So because this report is from 1st of July, this August and September, obviously the data was not taken into account, leaving out some big number of international students who would have come to Canada. So in my opinion, okay, my humble opinion, this number of temporary residents in Canada as of right now is certainly more than 2.2. Also, with these numbers, it seems it doesn't take into account the visit visa holders who are in Canada. Okay, it also doesn't take into account people who have come to Canada and have claimed refugee status, or who have claimed asylum, who are seeking asylum, protected persons, right? We are not going to talk about the illegals. We think there is approximately 500,000 to almost a million undocumented workers in Canada, undocumented people basically who do not have any status, who do not have any documentation. So that's another big, huge number. More than 1 million people applied under the Ukraine provisions that were given for the CUAT visas. Approximately what 800,000. I don't remember the exact number, but that many number were approved. A lot of people have entered, a lot of people are entering. So I do not agree with this number. I'm just trying to explain to you why I'm more scared of these numbers than what the numbers actually reflect, because there is this huge disparity there. This says 2.2 million. It says 1.5 million are workers. It says that would basically mean by law of, by subtractions, you would say that only 700,000 international students, which is not true, because their own reports have said that, okay, let's see this. I have another statistics here for you. This was the number of study permit holders with a valid permit, and this is a statistics from 2000 onwards until 2022. So as you can see, in 2000 you had only 122,000 people, and it just kept going up. Right until 2022, it was 800,000 who were international students. Now, Mark Miller himself has said that this year they are looking to have about 900,000 international students. So that by itself tells me that this number has this disparity here. There's a 200,000 people already missing. Plus, then there was, as I said, the August and September. Plus, it doesn't take into account the numbers of the protected persons, the asylum seekers, the refugee claimants, not the people who have already been approved, but refugee claimants. I don't see those numbers there. In addition to that, the visit visa holders, because for some reason it is the TikTok fancy, or it is a Instagram fancy to promote that come to Canada on a visit visa and it will be so easy to become a PR. Agents, consultants, lawyers in different parts of the world who are unauthorized practitioners are also selling, come to Canada on a visit visa, you'll become PR. It's so easy to become PR. You can get work permit very easily. You can convert it. Just get it. It's like lying on the floor. Just pick it up. You'll get a document and you'll become a worker. Go there and you will be able to apply for study permit. So yeah, I'm not sure where they're getting that information, in the sense like they make you feel as if it's so easy. It's not. But that's a discussion for a different day. For today, so this numbers do not keep into account or take into account visit visa holders. Now I'm not saying all visit visa holders who come to Canada want to live in Canada permanently. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that a lot of them are now coming with the intention of doing something so that they can have a go at permanent residence. So this 2.2 million, in my opinion, is a bit off, but I will go with this number. All right. Now, in this 2.2 million, there is also an inclusion of small minor children. Okay. Now, these minor children, obviously, for example, if one person is working in an IT company on an intra-company transfer, then that person has a spouse who is probably here on an open work permit and has one or two children. I'm just giving you just as I said, back of the napkin math. One or two children who are also here on study permit. So now this one person who is working here now has an open work permit for his or her spouse and 2 children. So totally 4, all of them being contributed towards 2.2 million people. Now, obviously, the children who may be school-going children, maybe even minors, even below the age of going to school, they obviously are not interested in PR. Their parents maybe, but they themselves are not. But also the spouse is an open work permit holder. The other spouse is a closed work permit holder. Out of them, only one would actually, give a go at the permanent residence application. Of course, both of them can have an express entry profile. They both can, go have a go at the whole permanent residence pathway simultaneously, whoever scores it first. But overall, this whole family of 4 will count towards one PR application eventually. Okay. So you need to understand this if you really need to get to the crux of the matter. So this 2.2 million, if I just sort of, say, okay, out of this 2, because there is no numbers there. Over here, they do not tell you how many children. They do not tell you how many children who are temporary residents. They do not tell you the families, and one person is a closed, other person is an open. But then we do not know how many families, and all that numbers are unknown, and there is no way to speculate. There is no way to predict. There is no way to estimate. So just play along with me. Just humor me, right? So let's say I will remove from this 2.2 million, 500,000 people. Just remove it. 500,000 people who are in such categories that I've just discussed with you. Now I have come back to 1.7 million people. Let's say out of 1.7 million people, there are people who are not interested in becoming PR because, hey, I'm here just to work. I will spend some time over here and I will go back. Let's say there are 10 to 15 to, again, as I said, humor me. Let's say there are 200,000 such people who are not interested in becoming a PR. They're just here and they will return back. Okay. So now from 1.7, we have reached to 1.5 million. I'm just trying to cut that number as low as possible, though, trust me, I'm being very optimistic. If I was to be conservative about this whole thing, I would have a very different number. So 1.5 million, let's say it's a fair understanding that there are 1.5 million temporary residents in Canada who would like to have a fair shot at becoming permanent residents. Fair, right? We can agree on that. Now look at this number. These are the immigration levels planned for 2023. Here, a lot of people say this is 500,000 as a quota. 500,000 is correct. Yes, there is a 500,000 number here at the bottom somewhere. The total number of the total number of permanent residents numbers are here. Where did that number go? Here, sorry. These are the numbers, right? So 500,000 on an average, yes, Canada wants to bring in. But for majority of you, 500,000 is not the number to look at. You should be looking at this number. Why should you be looking at this number? Is because this number is for the economic programs. Obviously, you are not going to be part of the family immigration. You're not going to be part of the protected persons, refugees. You're not going to be part of the parents, grandparents, spouses, because that is what these categories are, right? Parents, grandparents, protected persons, resettled refugees, all of them, humanitarian and compassionate, all of them. So you're not going to be part of that. You're going to be looking at these numbers. 266,000 for this year. The range is 266 to 277 for economic immigration for this year. Now, if I have 1.5 million people in Canada, not outside, we're not talking about federal skilled worker, we're not talking about people who are outside Canada. We're talking about only people who are inside Canada. If you have 1.5 such million people in Canada who want to become permanent resident, and the numbers that will allow them to get through will be only 266,210, you tell me what are the chances? Okay, so these numbers, and I've been saying this, I think I've been talking about this from this year, Feb, March, April, when I've been talking about these numbers again and again and again, and people said I'm into fear mongering. I'm not trying to create fear. I'm trying to shake you guys up, and my effort is to sort of wake you up and show you the numbers so that you have a realistic understanding of what lies ahead. All right. If you keep thinking that if I have passed out of school after 12th standard, I come to Canada and I will get my 2-year diploma and I will have a realistic chance, then you are, I would not say mistaken, but I'm saying then you are absolutely being misled into believing that it's going to be a very easy pathway. It's not like people who complete their 12th in India or anywhere and do a 2-year program in Canada, 2-year diploma, will not get PR. Of course they can. For example, Ontario has this great program, skilled trade stream. if you have 1 year of work experience in a skilled trade in Ontario, and I'm sure a lot of these people will get there, your CRS score can be as low as 250 for you to get invited. The problem is not there. The problem is for people, agents who are misusing this pathway and creating fake payrolls. They're running, fake employment for these people, misleading them, selling them LMIAs, pushing them into areas which is obviously more expensive, because hey, LMIAs are not cheap. You know it. We published a report which said $50,000 to $70,000 is what the LMIA is costing now. Fake payrolls are being run, which is costing anywhere from $15,000 to $25,000. And God help you if that company closes midways or towards the end. So your money is gone, and that whole 1 year of experience that you are looking to gain, that is gone. Or if this company who has been running multiple such fake payrolls is actually then flagged by Ontario or IRCC, and then they come looking for you over there, and then you have a misrepresentation. So all of this mess is also being created. And the people who are doing this they are the ones who are taking advantage of your fear. They're understanding that this numbers that I'm talking to you about is becoming more and more and more difficult by the day. And if you're not going to pay attention to it, if you're not going to prepare, plan, and have a better pathway ahead, then it's not going to work out. Now, I know there's a lot of talk. There are a lot of people who keep, let me sort of just close this for a minute. So these are the numbers. Now you know about the reality of the numbers, so you have an idea. Now let's talk about different things that are impacted by this. There are already international students in Canada. Now, there were students who had then have postgraduate work permits. Those postgraduate work permit holders since 2020 have been getting an extension because of COVID. 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, everybody got an extension. But I hope you realize that while you're getting extension, there was this problem that has been happening. Okay, because we are welcoming record numbers of international students and, of course, extending the work permits of postgraduate work permit holders, there is now a severe housing crisis in Canada. And for some reason, international students are getting the blame. I don't, again, it's not the international students who should get the blame. It should be the authorities, the government, who have been very happy to get all these international students to come to Canada. It's a $26 billion industry after all. The educational lobbyists are on top of it, having everybody come to Canada and saying, yeah, come on. There are horror stories about some universities whose projected target was X. 5 years later, have already completed the target of that many international students. And of course, they are raking in big money. There are stories about certain colleges in Ontario where 95% of the students are from India. So if you come here looking for international experience, you're not getting any. The point here being that these issues are now in the neck. वो कहते हैं ना कि गले में अटक गया, हलक में अटक गया, ना निगल सकते हैं ना थूक सकते हैं. So this has now become that thing in your throat which is now absolutely stuck. So this is what is happening with liberal government, who are still the ruling party in coalition with NDP, of course. Who's obviously governing. All these issues with the housing crisis, the high number of international students. So they keep talking about the high number of international students. They never talk about the high number of international workers in Canada. Now, because of all these housing crises and all these things that are coming to the forefront, and Sean Fraser, who was first the immigration minister, now being housing minister in Canada, there have been talks about putting a cap on international students. Now, before they put a cap on international students, they have to also keep in mind that they have been extending work permits 2020, 2021, 22, 2023. So when there are so many people who ask these questions as to will there be another extension next year, right? You've been wondering. There are so many people who are on postgraduate work permit, right? Whose work permits are now expiring in 2024. That is from January onwards. In my opinion, and it's just an opinion, please take it with a pinch of salt. Don't come with your guns blaring at me that I'm not supporting you and all of that. It's not about me supporting or not. I'm least of those people who will not support. I will support any just cause. In this case, it's my opinion that I don't see IRCC giving another extension. And the reason for that is, one, because of these housing crisis, which is being blamed on the international students and the temporary residents in Canada. Number two, COVID factors no longer exist. There aren't any, right? So you cannot say that you are losing out because of COVID anymore. So therefore, in my opinion, I don't see or I don't foresee anything happening with regards to the extension for postgraduate work permit holders whose postgraduate work permits are expiring in 2024. There is also no pressure on the government. Like last year, when 2023s were expiring, they did come out and did a lot of, I wouldn't say they held any demonstrations or something, but they were pressing upon the government, the members of parliaments, the people in the government, to extend the postgraduate work permits expiring in 2023. This year, I haven't seen anything. I haven't heard of anything. So in my opinion, I don't see the 2024 postgraduate work permits getting extended. That's the most important one. Further, I do anticipate that there will be some sort of a limit that will be placed on the international students. When I'm saying limit, I don't mean that they will start reducing the number as a blanket reduction, but I would expect some sort of change come to certain colleges who might lose their status, certain colleges who might be asked to restrict the number of students that they enroll in their program. So I don't see the numbers coming, right? I don't see the cap coming from the government. I think they will enforce it through the colleges, through the universities, and have them either diversify more or put a cap on certain numbers themselves. So those are the changes that you can look at within the temporary resident statuses that is happening in Canada. But for people who are already here, 1.5 million who are looking to become permanent residents, you have to wake up and understand everyone is not going to become a permanent resident. That is the hard truth. If you don't like it, I mean, I know you're going to get angry with me, you're going to get upset with me, but don't shoot the messenger. Okay, I'm just reading out the numbers to you. The numbers are not supporting all the 1.5 million people. It's not going to happen. And of course, each year the targets will change. Each year, more temporary residents will come to Canada. There will be more international students. There will be more workers who will get added to the workforce. The numbers are not going to reduce. And if only 270,000 people are going to become PR, add to that people who are coming from outside Canada, like federal skilled workers. Okay, if you are expecting another CEC draw, another TR to PR kind of a program, which will suddenly give you an added advantage, in my opinion, it's unlikely that at this point of time anything of that sort is going to happen. So, if you're an international student, what you should be looking to do is right now itself. While finding a job may not be a requirement for you because you may have the money to pay for your expenses and it is not a requirement for you to study as well, but finding a job is a condition that I would really, really suggest. And the reason for that is if you start working in the right kind of a job with the right kind of employer right now itself as an international student, by the time you have completed your studies and you then become a full-time worker with them, there is a very high chances that that employer, being impressed with your good work, will be willing to support you for your PNP application. While most of you may still be able to get your express entry scores, you know, in the 500 range, if you've completed your master's in Canada, you have 1 year of work experience in Canada, high CLB scores, there is a good possibility of getting to 500 plus. It's not rocket science. You can do the basic maths. But PNPs are going to play a very instrumental role. Any PNP, no matter which PNP it is, except for, like, for example, Saskatchewan's express entry and OID, except for Alberta inviting few people from outside Canada, except for Ontario's human capital priority stream, except for there's 3 or 4 different programs, every other stream requires an employer support. If you don't have the employer support, you're not going to go anywhere. It's not happening. You may as well book a ticket back home while the fares are cheaper. Because, and don't take offense to that, right? What I'm just trying to tell you is just shaking you up and waking you and telling you that whether it's AIP, whether it is RNIP, whether it's the rural programs, whether it's the PNP programs, no matter which PNP program, they all need employer support. Okay, this is an employer-driven immigration now. If you still don't realize it, then you have to really, you know, I don't know, wake up to a nightmare probably at some point of time. But this is the hard fact. This is the hard truth. The sooner you understand that, the better it would be. And from there on, then you know how it's going to work out. At this point of time, in the way the things are, this year, I think they've already achieved the target of 500,000 people very easily. It's not going to be a problem. The express entry draws that are happening right now, you already know they're all category-based draws. We still have October, November, December, 3 months to go. We are anticipating a draw this week, hopefully. I'm looking forward to seeing some regular express entry draws, probably not with a large number, but just to cover PNPs and some express entry candidates. I do anticipate a STEM category draw. I do anticipate a healthcare draw. I do anticipate a French proficiency draw. But for agriculture, trade, transport, I am not so sure because their quotas was already quite a small number. But for STEM, the number is big. Let's see how many that happens. Already the invitations that are being issued, they are all going to contribute to the PR quota for next year. These invitations that are being issued are not for PR quota for this year, because this year's PR quota is pretty much already done. These invitations that are now being issued, because by the time they will process these applications, it would be a few months later. You're already into 2024, and by the time you formalize your status in Canada, whether you're inside Canada or you come from outside Canada to inside Canada, you will be in 2024, therefore adding to the quotas of 2024. So all the ITAs that are being issued now. When we get to the next year, when we get to the start of 2024, because it will be a renewed ITA number. Now, please keep in mind, ITA quotas are different than the PR quota. ITAs do not mean the same number of PRs, because one successful ITA could have multiple applicants, right? Two spouses, two children will be 4 PR quotas versus one successful ITA as an applicant. So those numbers are totally, they're not the same. So come 2024, you will see a refreshed, renewed ITA quota. With that ITA quota being renewed, you will see, at least at some point of time early in the year, you should see a bigger, larger, regular express entry draw, which should bring the express entry scores to within the reach of 480s. Now, there is no, it's just a speculation. It's just a prediction. I mean, there is no way for me to know how many invitations will be issued, how many people are in the pool, when will they issue? I don't know. There is no way to know that. But it is just the way they did that this year. In April this year, they issued 21,000 ITAs, right? 7,000, 7,000, 7,000, back to back. Within a span of 2 weeks, they issued 21,000 ITAs. The only purpose being to bring the scores down. I hope that we see something similar next year as well. So that's where you can see the scores coming within the reach. But that should not hold you back. If you are one of those people who's in 480s, you should be looking to improve your scores as much as possible. If you're still on the fence with the French, then it's been pretty clear that Francophone immigration will continue. Year on year, they intend to increase the quotas of French immigration, Francophone immigration outside the Quebec region. So this year was 12%. We hope to see 14% next year. So that category is not going anywhere. That category is here to stay. So if you're still thinking French, then please absolutely jump onto it. There is also Ontario who invites French. There is also Saskatchewan who gives you additional 10 points, up to additional 10 points for French. So you see that is happening everywhere. I will not be surprised if next year I see French categories coming into Alberta's and British Columbia as well. So there is a huge advantage in learning French if you can. Identifying categories that will, now these categories will change at some point of time. I am of the opinion that they will remain the same for at least the first quarter of next year. There will be a report that will be tabled in the parliament by February next year as to how did they identify these categories and what is the plan for these categories. Until such time, we will not know what they're looking to do. But in my opinion, at least until the first quarter, the categories will remain. This month, October end or 1st of November, we are looking forward to seeing the new immigration levels plan that will also be issued as per the mandate. So far, the immigration minister has not received a mandate letter from the prime minister. That mandate letter will also give us a lot of insight as to what the direction that the government is looking to sort of push immigration into. That will also give us a good insight. So all these things we are obviously waiting for to understand better as to which way this thing is going to go. But at this point of time, the numbers are suggesting that the permanent residence pathway in Canada is going to become more and more and more difficult. And if you are a temporary resident and if you thought it's going to be easy, it's not easy at all. Get your CRS scores up by Canadian work experience, education, language skills scores, French, job offer. These are the factors that improve your scores. Any of these, whatever you can do, get it done. Otherwise, find an employer who will support your application, because that's the only way to get through and crack a PNP. That's all that I had to talk about in this session of today's episode. If you are still here, then please connect with us on all the social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, of course. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, because if Canada is on your mind, then this is the only channel you should be looking to subscribe. Let's look at the questions, and there are tons and tons of them here. Okay, let's start with the super chats. Bhishma says, I I have absconded job in 3 months. Okay. No experience letter. I never mentioned about the same in closed work permit or resume, left gap as it is. What should I mention in PR history? Well, my opinion would be to never hide information, because that can always backfire. Uh, if you are not working there, obviously you're not working there, and you have no experience letter, my suggestion would be to include it in your personal history once you receive your ITA. Personal history, if you include it, you are covered because you've disclosed it. You don't need to claim points for it. You don't need to provide any documentation for it. And that way you will be fine. Don't worry about it. Vishnu says, I have received a request letter yesterday asking to provide explanation about some lump sum transaction in a week's time. Is this a positive or a negative response? Well, if you don't respond to this request letter, then it's a negative thing. If you respond to this, then you'll be fine. Well, you have to understand, for proof of fund, when you get these request letters where they ask you to explain the deposits in your account, then they have a concern. And their concern primarily stems from the fact that your proof of funds should belong to you. It should not be borrowed, and your money that you have should be unencumbered, free of any lines. That's the most important condition and requirement as per the law for proof of funds. Now, when IRCC sees a lump sum deposit into your account and you haven't explained it, IRCC doesn't know where the money is coming from. And as far as they're concerned, they can assume that that money has been borrowed by you to provide your proof of funds to meet with the requirements. So it is your absolute responsibility to provide this information as to where did that funds come from, and explain it so that it establishes that the money belongs to you. If you're not able to establish, then this can have some negative consequences. My current employer didn't mention salary on the letter. I submitted last 6 months payslips and bank statements and contract letter. Is it fine? There are a lot of employers who do not mention the salary on their employment letters for different reasons, right? For example, you can take an employment letter, you can go to a different company and say, I'm getting this salary, I want a higher salary. So a lot of employers are worried about that. So that's why they don't give it to you. But as long as you're able to establish and prove that you were paid for that period of work, so by pay stubs, bank statements, IT returns, then you are absolutely fine. Then it's not an issue. Always try and add a letter of explanation to support and your application by saying that my employer did not mention it. Therefore, please refer to these documents, which proves that I was paid during this period of time. Can I non-accompany my wife and apply for Ontario Human Capital Priorities? And after getting 600 points, can I accompany her again in EE profile to apply for PR? Technically, yes, you can. However, there is a way to go about it. You will have to inform Ontario. IRCC may also see this as you trying to manipulate the system or game the system. So how you do this is pretty important. What you can do is you can inform Ontario that you would like to add your spouse to your application. If Ontario accepts it, then you can go ahead and add your spouse to your application. And yeah, you should be able to do it. But as I said, be very careful as to how you proceed with this. There is no question there, Vinny. I'm sorry about that. Abhishek says, I have CRS of 495. Should I wait for STEM or no program draw? Should I pursue Ontario master stream? But being hopeful, I haven't used it. Okay, not able to understand the last bit. So if you have a score of 495, in my opinion, it's a pretty good score. It's a pretty high score. If they were to continue with the regular express entry draws, the scores should be in the 490s range. It definitely will give you an advantage for the STEM category draw. It should also give you with the Ontario's Human Capital Priorities draw if your NOC code is included in the tech draw of Ontario's. If there is any way for you to improve your CRS score, then please do that. Otherwise, if you wish to pursue Ontario's masters, maybe wait a bit, give it a few months if you can, and then come back and revisit this thought. It's been more than 75 days since I got AOR under CEC. No updates on profile. Still have temporary UCI number. No medicals update. Is this something considered normal? Yes, it's absolutely normal. At this point of time, the first step of your application, which is called as the R10 pass stage, is taking longer than normal. It is on an average between 2 to 3 months at this point of time. But there could also be some other issues, in the sense like they could have an issue with your medicals. For example, if they have identified a concern in your medicals for whatever the reason might be, then until they clear your medicals, you might not see that first stage getting through. But I don't think you should be worried about it. Whatever would that be, you would get to hear from IRCC in terms of whenever your medicals have passed and your R10 has passed. But yes, it is, as of right now, the standard processing that we are looking at in terms of the R10 stage, it is between 2 to 3 months at this point of time. Also keep in mind the average, or rather the standard processing time is 6 months, though on an average we are seeing applications being processed in about 5 months as of now. So I think you're still fine. Don't have to worry about it too much. Okay, scrolling up. All right. Should education history include only the highest degree evaluated by WES, or be detailed like 10th, 12th, bachelor's? How should we write distance education degree, full-time or part-time? Two questions, both very good questions. The first one, in your education history, you don't need to mention your 10th, 12th, because it says very clearly to mention your post-secondary education. Now, post-secondary would be everything you did after your 12th in your case. So you can mention your bachelor's degree, you can mention your master's degree if you have it, or any postgraduate diplomas in your education history. You don't need to do WES for all your credentials, as long as you are sure that your master's will get you the master's equivalency. In most cases, with WES at least, I would recommend getting your bachelor's and master's evaluated, so that even if the master's has not been given the master's equivalency, but a bachelor's or a 1 year or 2 year diploma, then you can still claim points for 2 degrees or more. And therefore, having your bachelor's and your master's mentioned in your education history is extremely important, so that you can choose the ECA and the equivalency that has been given to you. Second question, what should we write about a distance education degree? Well, for distance education degree, what you should do is, in the name of the university or a college, you should write the name of your college in brackets, the university, and then you can put distance learning there. Okay. As far as full-time or part-time is concerned, this would be a part-time education, because you did not attend your classes of at least 15 hours per week. All right. Ontario asks you to list all work experience. Thus, I have mentioned my current work experience, for which I am not claiming points. I only submitted LOE, offer letter, no reference letter. Should I be worried? You shouldn't be worried at all. Now, Ontario does require you to list all your work experience within the last 10 years. But if you do not have any documentation for any specific periods of work, you can always add a letter of explanation saying, for this periods of work, I'm not claiming points. I don't have the documentation. So therefore, as long as you have provided them with enough documentation for your valid period of work for which you are indeed claiming points, then you will be fine. Few months ago, Sean Fraser announced that a new pathway would be created for tech workers to come to Canada even without job offer. Would it still be created considering a new immigration minister? Well, if there has been a plan, keep in mind that the ministers do not change the processes that they have been wanting to. They may influence it. They obviously can direct it. They obviously have a certain level of authority over it. But it's the think tank, the process operational think tank in IRCC, which will create all these policies, programs, and of course send it to them for the approval, send it to the minister for approval. Now, the pathway that you are talking about is not specifically without a job offer, it is without LMIA requirement. So please go through it in effect to understand what it is. At this point of time, details are unknown, and since obviously they haven't announced any details, we don't know if and when this kind of a program will be launched. Average processing time for Ontario's human capital priority stream at this point of time is between 3 to 4 months. After COPR for federal skilled worker outland through E, can we withdraw funds from the bank account shown in the proof of funds section in PR application and then replenish it for the first landing in Canada? Yes, once you have been approved for your PR, you can withdraw your funds. Those are your funds. Do whatever you wish to do. But when you arrive in Canada, then the border officer may ask you for the proof of funds. At that point of time, you don't have to provide any additional documents, as long as you can simply provide them with a bank statement that shows the availability of the funds equal to your family size, then you should be good to go. Is an in-person interview required for student visa? No. In most cases, there is no requirement for an in-person interview for a student visa. There are very, very rare occasions where IRCC or the High Commission or the Consul General may request for an interview when they have certain concerns on certain integrity issues. That is when they would like to talk to you in person and clarify those. But by and large, study visa applications, student visa applications do not require an in-person interview. I just completed my studies, had a job offer. I need PR ASAP. Okay. Looking for applying Ontario International Student Job Offer Stream. Is it possible? Well, the first thing you should be looking to do is check the criteria of International Student Stream. If you are eligible, then by all means, create your expression of interest. If you get invited, then you will be able to apply for it. I wrote intention to reside in Ontario's application form window rather than attaching a separate letter and attach lease agreement for ties. Chances? I don't see that as a problem, though you should have added your intent letter separately as well. You can always email it to Ontario saying that you skipped this document and you wanted to add it. I think the chances are still pretty good. You'll be fine. 471 STEM category, chances of STEM and PNP. I won't know. I can't tell you. And the reason for that is because there is no way to know how many people are there in the express entry pool with specific NOC codes. What you should be looking to do is you should be checking individual PNP streams to see where your NOC code will be eligible. For example, Ontario is one. 471 has been pretty good for Ontario in the past. But until and unless IRCC conducts a STEM category draw, there is no way of knowing how many invitations they plan to issue as we move forward. How to change the first name in OneKey account after submitting an application? I know we need to email some form, but could you explain? Well, you just need to email Ontario and then ask them to change your name. They might need some other documentation and identification and the reason, and they should be able to do it and help you with this one. In the post AOR stage, getting married will add my partner to the application. Can she get her PCC just before marriage? Is it acceptable or need a fresh one after marriage? You can absolutely get the police clearance just before the marriage. There is no problem. You can use that same police clearance because that police clearance is valid for 6 months. So after getting the PCC, if you get married and then you submit the documents, there is no problem with it. You can do it, no problem. I have work experience in India full-time while I was doing my bachelor's. When I was applying for a visa, I was only 6 months, so I didn't include it. I now want to include now for EE. I have payslips experience letter. Sahil, this is a question which is a huge gray area in the sense like you chose to not disclose it earlier. You chose for it, right? I do not know whatever was the reason for you choosing to not disclose it because IRCC's application form is very clear. They're asking you to disclose all your work experiences. But for whatever the reason is, you chose not to mention your 6 months. And now, because you want to use that period of work experience, because obviously it gives you an advantage, you want to show it. It is entirely IRCC's discretion how they see it. They can absolutely view this as misrepresentation because you were hiding this information earlier. So the risk is yours to take. Can people inside India apply for agriculture, trade, transport category based draws? Yes, you can. There is no condition at this point of time which states that this category based draws is only for people in Canada. It is basically for anybody who's eligible at this point of time, and all programs are included in the category based draws. Why study permit taking so much time to finish? Well, I do not know which country you are referring to, but then the processing varies from one country and one visa office to another. It varies for different reasons depending on the number of applications that are coming through, depending on the number of people that they have servicing this particular stream of business. You can also refer to the IRCC's website, which gives you the latest latest processing times. Had received CSQ, applied for some changes to CSQ, no reply received from Quebec in the last few months. But in the meantime, I got ITA through EE and also my COPR. Anything needs to be done from my end. If you have your COPR, no, you don't need to do anything. Unless the changes you were looking for in your CSQ were material, then you need to follow up for the change of CSQ. And then once you have it, update IRCC with the new CSQ. My personal activity exceeds past 10 years, but I wrote address history is in line with 10 years. I got PCC for duration of 10 years. Is that okay? Yes, because the condition or the requirement is for you to disclose your last 10 years, address history, last 10 years, personal history, last 10 years. If you're using or claiming points, then your work history, and your PCC is also required only for the last 10 years. When can we expect Alberta PNP next draw? I don't know. They don't announce their schedule for the draws. Upon lodging the PR, how long will it take for Canada Immigration Department to update the PR status? The standard processing time is 6 months for express entry. For non-express entry, it can be 2 years. There is no specific timeline for any other aspect of the milestone of your application. You can obviously, once you have your R10 stage completed or your AOR stage, then you can create your account on the PR tracker and therefore then follow the progress of your application. Dinesh says, signed job offer letter, employer declaration. So I don't understand what you're asking. So I'm going to skip this. Can I delete the education table that is pre-populated in personal activity section as it exceeds past 10 years? This is because I got PCC from the last 10 years only. As I said, your PCC is required only for the last 10 years. If you want to delete some aspects from your personal history, yes, you can. There's no problem with that. Okay, there are a lot of questions being repeated, so I'm going to... Can you please share your mail ID? Want to connect. So if you wish to connect, then you can make an appointment. That is the link, askkubeir.com/appointment. I'll be more than happy to discuss your questions and queries one-on-one. Okay, I need to do my application when my wife is on short visit to India. Where should I get her PCC from? Have to apply when she comes back. Well, the requirement of the police clearance is that if it is not your country of residence, then it should cover the entire duration of that stay in that country. So technically, you should apply for it once she returns back. And that way you would have cleared the requirement of the PCC. I have work experience in India full-time while I was... Oh, we did this, right? Yeah, of course we did. What happens if we get PPR as FSW outland and the primary applicant and the spouse are living in different countries? Good question. What you can do is you can raise a web form and request IRCC to allow you to submit your application for stamping in different countries as it is applicable. In most cases, it's not a problem. So you should be able to do it at all. My brother got Saskatchewan PNP. He wants to move out of that province. Can he after 6 months? Will it affect later? That's a very tricky question. When you go to a province, you have expressed your intention to reside in that province. If you leave immediately after 6 months, until and unless you are able to prove that living in the province was just not happening for you, and that was a very, creating a lot of issues for your day-to-day life. You were not able to find a job. You had other issues which were pushing you to leave. If that is not the case, then I would not recommend leaving so soon. I think you should stay put for at least 1.5 to 2 years. Plus, that would also create a problem if at all you used a PNP family connection. For example, somebody in your family who is already there in Saskatchewan who gave you those points, then it is a problem for them. And in future, if you yourself would like to, give those family points to somebody else, then it's a problem there as well. Do I need to inform IRCC about my pregnancy after submitting my PR application? I figured out recently that I am pregnant. Well, congratulations on expecting a baby. Well, no, you don't need to inform IRCC about your pregnancy. You only need to inform IRCC when there is a change in your family circumstances and composition, which basically means once your baby is born and you still haven't arrived in Canada as a permanent resident, at that point of time, you have to inform IRCC so that your baby can be added to your application as well. Does Ontario require blank passport pages to be scanned for HCP? No, not really. If you want, you can. There is no problem in doing that. My husband's spouse opened work permit and my study visa got approved, but my daughter's study visa was refused. We came to Canada last month. When can I reapply? Is there any problem? Should I need to get GCMS? It is always a good idea to get a GCMS note so that you can understand why was the application refused in the first place. and you can absolutely apply for it again. You can reapply, and this time, because you understand the GCMS notes and you have taken the note of the issues that were there in your previous application, when you reapply, you would be able to take care of those issues and probably address those concerns, and hopefully you will get your approval. All the best. What are the chances of having French category based draws for next 1-2 years? I don't have a crystal ball for something like this. In my opinion, the French category draws should continue. I do not know about 1 or 2 years, but certainly in the near future, I don't see them stopping at all. And one of the reason is because there is a push from the government right at the top to increase the francophone immigration outside the Quebec region. So therefore, I will put my neck on the line if I have to say that the francophone immigration or the category based draws for French should continue. I'm working remotely from home for my company registered in Alberta. It's a physical office address mandatory. Is a physical office address mandatory for the Alberta Tech Pathway or other AINP programs? No, it is not mandatory, but they do raise credibility flags if it's a home-based company and if you're working remotely. So yeah, if it's a proper secured office premises, that has better chances of going through for any of your PNP applications, if you're using the job offer, that is. If the applicant works in 2 full-time jobs at the same time and one falls under the category, can he claim points for this? Yes, he can. There is no problem. What you should do is the one you're claiming points for under the category, you should mention that in your work history, and the other period of work, don't mention it in your work history, but mention it in your personal history after you get your ITA. Can you please tell if it is okay to make changes to EE profile after getting NOI and before submitting application to OINP? You should not be looking to make these kind of changes. You should be informing Ontario and only making changes once they have confirmed that you can. Is there any possibility for PGWP extension in 2024? What can we expect for the coming year? Aditya, my recommendation is to watch the video from the beginning. I did cover this aspect. In my opinion, I do not expect PGWP extension in 2024, and I did share the reasons why I thought so. And my recommendation would be to just watch the video from the beginning. We did talk about what to expect in detail. Is it mandatory to disclose all bank accounts CC even if I have no loans or transaction? What is mandatory is to disclose all loans and liabilities, including credit card debt. You may choose to not add all your bank accounts if you don't want to, but all your loans and liabilities, you should. That is part of the requirement. Do the funds shown at the time of first landing in Canada need to be present for past 6 months, or it is okay we were deposited a few days back? No, they don't check your timeline, or they do not check the aging of funds when you come to Canada. All they need to see is at the border that you have sufficient funds. And that also they ask in rare cases. It's not a regular question that they ask for in most cases. So as long as you're able to show them your bank statement, or even switch on your phone and show them your online account that you have sufficient funds, then they are pretty good with that. What are the chances for asylum approval if a person is from India? Consultants are charging lakhs for visit visa, suggesting them to apply for asylum at the port of entry. I will take this as the last question because this one needs a bit of explaining that people fall into this trap on a very regular basis, and you should avoid doing that. Asylum seeking or asylum or refugee claims are for those people who are running away from the fear of persecution in their home countries or in their circumstances in their home countries. We've handled so many such cases of situations where people are filing for asylum, people are filing for refugees, but then they have genuine reasons. From your question itself, it shows that there is no reason for you to be filing an asylum. The agents who are saying that they will file for your visit visa and go to Canada and file for your asylum, they are misleading you. Once you have filed a case for asylum, once you have filed a case for refugee, you pretty much become ineligible for any other immigration program. Also in future, because the chances for your refusal is going to be pretty high. So what is going to happen is, because you don't really have any reason for filing a case of asylum, it means you will be lying in your application because you want to make for a good case. Otherwise, it will not get approved, right? So you will be lying, you will be providing fake documentation, you will be creating a fake story. Obviously, there will be some diligence done by the authorities, and once they have identified that your story is fake, your application is bound to get refused. So such kind of cases, the applications do get refused. Most cases they get refused, and then you do not have recourse for any other immigration program, because after your application for this claim is refused, you can file for an appeal. After filing for an appeal, which should also get refused, because hey, you do not really have a case for asylum in the first place. Plus, you have provided all fake documents, all untrue stories. You will file for an appeal, that will also get refused. Then you will file for HNC, humanitarian and compassionate grounds, that would technically also get refused. You will then file for a judicial review in the Federal Court of Canada, which in my opinion should also get refused. After that, you can file for PRA, okay, pre-removal risk assessment. In my opinion, again, that should also get refused, because you never had a very good ground or solid ground for filing an asylum in the first case. But now what that has happened is, after being in Canada on this claim for 5, 6, 7 years that you would have spent, you are nowhere. You will not be able to file for any immigration program. And after having this kind of a background in Canada, once you return back to your home country, you file for a visa to any of the countries in Europe, US, Australia, New Zealand. Because you filed for refugee, your credibility as a visitor, credibility as a temporary resident is gone out of the window. You will not be able to apply for visas there as well. So please, I'm not saying don't file for asylum. I'm saying file for asylum only if that is your genuine situation, genuine circumstances, only if that applies to you. Because mind you, the conditions, the requirements for documentation and for you to be able to prove the circumstances is very, very high. So if you just think you will just file a claim for asylum, it will be through, it doesn't work like that. Otherwise, everybody will be doing it, right? It doesn't. So you will be here with uncertainty for so many weeks, months, years, and yet you will have no recourse. So it will not work in your favor. You would have spent thousands and thousands of dollars, because the application for these situations are very high. We charge a lot of money as well, because this application is very, very intensive. It is very draining as well. So you first file an application for your claim, then it gets refused, you file for an appeal, then it gets refused, you file for HNC, that gets refused, you file for judicial review. So these are all different applications. You will be spending thousands and thousands of dollars for each of these. Don't do that. Okay, rather come and study in Canada. If you have to, find a genuine employer who can offer you a job. Look at more realistic ways of leading a pathway, and that could probably have a better chance for you. I hope that helps. Guys, thank you so much for joining in. If I haven't been able to answer a question, and I'm sure I haven't been able to answer a lot of questions because there are so many of them there, please, by all means, post them in the comment section. I'll come back later today and try and answer to as many questions as I can. Thank you so much for joining in. It was a pleasure reconnecting with you, and we shall do this again next week, same time, and I will see you then. Take care.